Welcome. We are here in week 4 of The Universe, a love story with Barbara Marx Hubbard and Marc Gafni, the man with only 2 names. So it's exciting. The first 3 weeks, we've just kind of laid down the beginning of a framework. Now, we want to apologize to you. It's a slightly sincere, slightly insincere apology. It's kind of a mixture of both. But what we mean is, in the first 3 weeks, we took a lot of things for granted. We talked about existentialism. We didn't quite explain what is existentialism, the Renaissance, schools of art. And we just had a little bit of a conversation which we think you were able to track all of, but we've gotten some comments from you which asked us to really explain everything. So if we say existentialism, we'll stop and say, by existentialism we mean, okay, so that we've gotten a bunch of those comments saying, wow, we're really loving the podcast and we don't want to miss anything. So please, unpack everything. So we promised to do that. Thank you for those comments. Those were super helpful. Good, Mark? Good, Barbara?
Yeah.
We got a deal. Okay. So week 4, and now it takes off. Now we take off. Our topic in podcast 4 is evolutionary love. And we're going to start explaining more deeply what we mean when we say the universe is not a fact but a story. It's a love story. So what drives evolution? We know that in science there are 4 forces: the electromagnetic, gravity, and the strong and the weak. And again, if those mean a lot to you, fantastic, and if they don't, fine. Those are the 4 forces of the physical universe. But what we're really understanding very clearly now, both in interior sciences and in exterior sciences, right, meaning both in classical, what we classically call science, and based on our own interior understanding of how things work, is that something's got to be driving the whole thing, right?
Well, the most amazing thing that we have discovered through cosmogenesis is the universe has direction.
It's going someplace.
It's going somewhere, and it's going somewhere that we want to go if we want greater love, greater freedom, greater connectivity. It seems to have a value system deep
Right.
inside the design of evolution.
Right.
To me, that was the greatest revelation in a world which looked meaningless or looked like we're just going for more power and more control, to a world that was calling us for greater love, greater connectivity, greater consciousness, and I would say greater life purpose.
So let's look at this, okay? So Barbara throws out a big sentence that we both completely share. There seems to be a value system, right, inside of the structure of evolution, 1. 2, we talked about last week, the week before, that we're personally implicated in the evolutionary story. So we're personally implicated in articulating and fulfilling the values of evolution. Now let's just get this really clear. That idea barely existed, right, in the consciousness of the world very, very recently. The assumption about evolution was it was a blind force. The human being evolves willy-nilly, against the will. The human kind of evolves, let me say it better than willy-nilly, which who knows what he means by that. The human being evolves through a kind of random set of accidents, right? There's a random set of accidents that spawn forth a human being. There's a blind force of evolution, right? The world is a scientific machine, right? It's a clockwork universe. There are no real interiors, right, to speak of, right? Values are merely subjective. And the human being is decentered, but the world itself, right, is emptied of meaning. The world is, a phrase by a writer named Lewis Mumford, the world is disqualified, meaning quality, interiors, values, love, loyalty, none of those are actually real. What's real is the universe is a machine. Now, that's a big deal. We're now realizing that narrative wasn't true. We're now realizing that based on the best information we have, the universe is driven by evolutionary love. Now, you went, Barbara, to the end of the story, right? You went to, right, evolution has values, which is hugely true. I want to, with your permission, let's go back to the beginning of the story and see how we get there.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm a quark. A quark is a subatomic particle. Okay, Barbara's way ahead of me. I'm just a quark hanging out in Manhattan, doing my thing in Idaho. I'm a quark in Bombay, right? And I'm just doing my thing. right? And then I'm attracted to another quark. I feel like, whoa, that other quark is kind of hot, right? Could we hang out, right? And and over large periods of evolutionary time, there's an attraction. There's Thomas Berry's term. Thomas Berry was a great evolutionary philosopher, right? There's an allurement between subatomic particles. They're attracted to each other. There's a force in the universe of eros, of attraction, love by any other name. Because one of the properties of love is love brings people together. Barbara and I love each other, so let's do this project together. Mm-hmm. We're brought together. It's happening right now. Right? So love is this force of attraction which allures quarks to become atoms. Quarks, let's try and get those words straight. Quarks to become atoms. Atoms to become molecules. Molecules to become complex molecules. Complex molecules to become organisms. Organisms to become organelles. Organelles, right? And so the entire movement of evolution is driven by a force which we might call eros or love. There's other names we'll give to it a little later. Science calls it self-organization, or the driving towards emergence, which is the emergence of more and more complex, meaning, as Barbara said in week 1, more and more interconnected organisms that have more and more love internally, right? More and more cells internally, more and more pieces connecting internally, and have the ability, different beings, different organisms, to love each other more. So dogs can love each other more, and dogs are interiorly more complex on their insides. Right? Dogs can love each other more than amoebas love each other. They can consciously choose to take care of each other more than amoebas can. Right? They're loving each other, and in the interior of a dog, right, there's more love, there's more interconnectivity, there's more eros, there's more attraction. So this process of love starts at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Right? It doesn't start when people say love starts when sex begins. No, love is built in to the very fabric of reality, and it is the driving force that moves the whole story. And at the end, we'll come to values. It's going to wake up as values. It's going to wake up. But what about the beginning of this story?
Well, I was just going to say,
Please.
Even before the quarks.
Even before the quarks, yes.
The thing that is the most amazing to me is those first 3 seconds.
After the Big Bang.
After the Big Bang, that they say that if the energy had been faster, we would never have cohered into matter. Or if it had been slower, in those first 3 seconds, we would have been stuck and with no growth at all. So however it happened, those first 3 seconds, you might say, were the source code of the universe. In the first 3 seconds was create more life, create more consciousness. And the quarks appeared.
Just that sentence, love. Okay, beloved, just that sentence, even before, let's just stay before quarks, okay?
Okay, before quarks.
So, first 3 seconds, Barbara's saying, all the laws of physics and math, right? All the laws, right, of everything are established, right? A level of dazzling complexity. Do you ever get through calculus? It's not that easy, right? All of that is established. All the laws of physics, all the laws of mathematics, all laws of reality are established in the first 3 seconds, which is then going to guide the trajectory of evolution. Now I'm going to go one more.
Go.
Ready? Before the first 3 seconds, right? In what's called 1 to the negative 43, right? Which is a millionth of 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 a millionth, right? A millionth of a second. I wasn't counting my millionths, so don't hold me to that, right? But it's actually the very, very beginning of the beginning of the beginning of the beginning. The laws of physics don't apply. There are no laws of physics there. It's pure, right? It's pure nothing, right? There's no thing. There's no laws of physics. And out of that pure potentiality, then the laws of physics start. So in that 1 to the negative 43, right, which we now in science can identify in a way which we couldn't identify 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. We now know about that moment, which is no laws of physics, right? It's actually, from a mystical perspective, when we go inside of that reality, it's pure love breathing everything into existence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pure consciousness.
Pure consciousness It's ultimately the source of all mystery. And then the 3 seconds, the first 3 seconds in which all the laws are established, and then the laws begin to evolve towards higher and higher levels of connectivity. Eros, love. Wow.
So this is why you can really say love was at even before the beginning, because to put before the Big Bang,
Right.
no physics, no laws, to put those laws in place that
Right.
actually allowed the allurement and attraction of the quarks and the protons and the electrons all the way up means, for me, intelligent.
Right.
And we were talking about the way people have looked at this process.
Right.
One way has been the Creator God, as you said, does it from the outside, and we're the result of that Creator God's intelligence.
Who's a big human being who hates homosexuals, who loves only one nation,
It doesn't like women very
and
well.
doesn't like women very much, right?
Yeah.
It's the negative view of the Creator God.
The Creator God, and we're more or less disempowered unless we follow the laws of the Creator God.
That's right.
That was on one side. On the
And
other,
the Creator God wants to make sure that you don't do anything wrong when you're naked.
and on the other side of the equation is it's a meaningless universe. There's no creator, there's no design, it's an accident.
It's an accident.
Now, to call this design in the first 3 seconds an accident,
It's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I don't know how you can logically, from a scientific perspective, call that an accident. And I do know that one of the ways they've tried to do it is by saying there must be billions of universes, and by accident, one was perfectly designed for energy, matter, and life. Whatever the truth of that is, it seems completely illogical to me to say that perfect design was an accident.
And this is important because, let's be really clear here, science does not say as a fact that the universe is an accident, right? Accident is about interiors, about what's driving it. Science can only describe, and that only is huge and beautiful and wonderful, and science is the best articulation we have of the laws of nature, for sure. But to say, right, to talk about what the nature, the interior nature of those laws are, where that design came from, right, to assert that as an accident has nothing to do with science. That's not scientific. There's this assumption out there, oh, science says, right, reality is an accident. Science has nothing to say about it, right? Science is describing, right, exteriors. Right, now let's really get this straight. I really want you to understand this, because there are dozens and dozens of scientists, who are leading physicists, leading, quantum physicists, leading molecular biologists that I've talked to over the last 30 years. And not one of them in a private conversation would say the universe is an accident. Actually, that's considered to be patently absurd. Sometimes there's dogmas, right, of science, right, where science isn't being scientific, it's being dogmatic. It's claiming things on faith because it needs to, for a lot of reasons which we'll talk about later, just like religion used to claim things on faith. So I want you to really get how absurd it is. Imagine if, here's an example, okay? So right before we got started filming, I got Barbara these flowers. Do you like the flowers?
Yeah, I like the flowers
They're
a
awesome.
lot.
Everyone like them? Okay. So imagine that I had brought Barbara, right, as a gift, right, a reality that had in it, a design that had in it all of the laws of mathematics and all of the laws of physics. And I give it to her as a gift. And she says, wow, that was an accident. Imagine I worked in my garage and I made the most beautiful, elegant, stunning painting that you could possibly imagine. And she looks and says, so that was an accident. Nice. It's absurd. Right? And that stunning painting that I designed, or that stunning creation I designed in my garage for 7 weeks, if I give it to her, it's because I love her. Right? And as I'm creating this design, this elegance, this beauty, right, out of the sense of wanting to gift, wanting to love. Right? And so mystics, meaning people who enter into, using scientific experimental methods, we'll talk about that in a different week, enter into the interior face of the cosmos, mystics have been able to realize that what's driving the Big Bang is love itself. That love begins the whole process. But you don't need to be a mystic to figure it out. Just get really simple and basic. Reality gives us this gift of dazzling elegance and beauty beyond imagination. Dazzling, what was your word, Barbara? Design.
Design, yes, design going somewhere valuable to me.
Going somewhere valuable to me, not designed by a homophobic creator God, right, who says only this people is chosen. Not that kind of design, but the inherent intelligence of reality itself that is dazzling beyond any imagination. Just study molecular biology, for a few minutes, right, and you're going to be blown out of your mind, right? Oh, that was all an accident. Really? So that's not a claim made by science, right? Science doesn't talk about accident, right? Science can't make a claim in that realm. And religion can't tell us there was a homophobic, angry God who did it. What we're realizing is there's an interior design in the cosmos which moves towards more and more connectivity, more and more mutuality, more and more recognition of each other, more and more embrace, right? That's love by any other name. Does that make sense, Barbara?
It's such a good design.
Isn't it?
When you come to hear it this way.
Yeah.
I just like to express my appreciation of the universe having this design.
Right.
There's a sense of thankfulness on my part to even be part of this.
Right.
Now, having the wisdom, intelligence with the scientific background and the mystical traditions, to see myself a living example of the 13.8 billion years that it took to create a being able to know the universe is a love story. You see,
Right.
the universe must be pleased, if I can say so, that species are intelligent enough to discover what it's been up to all along.
Wow.
I know I'm jumping ahead of the story.
No, you're awesome. You're awesome. So let's just track this for one. We're going to close here. We're going to pick up next week. So the universe is driven by evolutionary love, which is the force of allurement and attraction that moves to more and more complexity, more and more interconnectivity, more and more interiority, meaning more and more depth of consciousness. A dog has more depth than an amoeba. A human being has more depth than a crocodile, right? More and more depth, more and more capacity to love, more and more capacity to be aware. That's the movement of evolution. And then, Barbara, let's go back to, and I really want to ask you to end for us with how you started, because that process of movement towards love awakens, as you began, with human beings becoming aware of these values consciously and being able to act on them consciously. So love, awareness, nurturing, caring, recognition, union, embrace, all of these values become conscious as values that we hold as the universe awakens to itself. So maybe describe that to us.
Well, for me, the feeling that my own impulse toward greater love, toward greater creativity and goodness is the universe in me expressing that. So it makes a huge difference from me being a separate person who wants to be loving.
Right.
To being a person in whom the force of creation is expressing itself as love, because the empowerment that I feel when I feel my desire for greater love is the universal process within me. I become so thankful. And it's in an old-fashioned way you would say, thank you, God, for the process. In a newer way, you might say, thank you, process of creation.
Right.
Thank you, universal impulse of design. See, we don't have a good word for God.
Right.
In this metaphor.
Right. And universal impulse of design or intelligent cosmos is, right, what we mean, right, in the evolved sense when we talk about God. Right? The God you don't believe in doesn't exist. You get that? Right? The old mythological God, let it go. But the universal impulse of design, right, you got to be careful because the word God's not in there. That's not just an automatic, dead, inert, mechanistic universe. That's the most throbbing, living, radically wise, alive, infinitely powerful force that we can even vaguely begin to imagine, exponentially way beyond what our imagination can even begin to touch. That's what we're talking about. Universal force of design, right? Like what, right?
Yeah.
Just blows your mind out. So that's driven by, right? That's love. That's love driving the process. So let's hold here. I know we didn't explain it all. We're just kind of beginning to put it on the table. You have a last word for us, Barbara?
I think it's a long word.
It's a long word. Next week. Next week?
I think so.
Next week it is.
Yes.
Okay, love you.
Yes. Next
Total.
week.
Okay. Here we go. Next week.